We need to focus now on having a plan not to lose Mariupol and having a plan not to lose Odessa. If they lose both, Ukraine, as I said before, is a landlocked nation and their economy is going to be hit extremely hard.
Russia has offered Ukrainian soldiers in Mariupol an ultimatum to surrender or die, but the deadline has passed with no sign of Ukraine laying down its arms. President Zelensky has warned that eliminating Ukrainian fighters in Mariupol would mean the end of peace talks. Well, I can now speak with General Philip Breedlove. He is former NATO Supreme Allied Commander Europe and chair of the Middle East Institute. Good afternoon and welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Ayesha. I look forward to our conversation.
So where do you think things are, General, particularly with the situation in Mariupol?
Well, Mariupol has been at risk for some number of days now. This is a tough group that's defending the city, and I think they intend to continue to defend the city. And Russia has to have Mariupol in order to close the land bridge to Crimea. And as you know, Mariupol is one of the most important ports in Ukraine, in that it is a big port for moving grain out through the Sea of Azov and into the Black Sea and into the world. So this is a strategic need for both sides, Ukraine to hold on to it and Russia to take it. It's going to be a tough slog ahead.
I mean, we have been saying now for not just days, but weeks, so we expect Mariupol to be taken by the Russians. But of course, the Ukrainians are demonstrating that incredible characteristic resilience. But what's your gut telling you, General?
Well, if we don't do something to help the defenders of Mariupol, they will eventually fall. Russia has time because they are not being pressured at all, and they are going to stay and accomplish this objective. They want to close down Mariupol, and then if they can continue along the coast and get Odessa, then they will have completely landlocked Ukraine, which will be a huge blow to Ukraine's economy and the way the country is wired to move goods and grain and agriculture to port. And so Russia knows this, and they're going to expend the force they need to continue this pressure.
And we have spoken with both Ukrainian MPs in Kyiv. We've also spoken with military experts who are forecasting that this is a bit of a lull, that Russia is regrouping. They expect to come back, particularly in that eastern region, and try to outnumber Ukrainian soldiers 5-1. Do you think that we are now at this point in the conflict going to see the advantage that Russia has just in the sheer numbers of soldiers that it has?
Well, as we say in the military, mass has its own special beauty. And so, yes, Russia is massing. And more importantly, I think than massing, they're reorganizing. What we saw in their losses in the north when they were defeated around Kyiv is a very disjointed command and control system that was unable to really focus their forces on the task at hand. In this period, this lull now, as they have been refurbishing, refitting, and even bringing brand new forces in from the Far East to join this battle, they've also, as importantly, put this entire battle under one commander, a man that we know to have been a particularly brutal commander in eastern Syria. And I'm sure he's there focusing the attack. Russia, unfortunately, will probably be better organized and better prepared for this next assault than they have been for those in the past.
And General, given that Russia is regrouping, it has been quite humiliating for President Putin. We know that the 9th of May is a really significant day in Russia. It's Victory Day. Many people are speculating President Putin will want to have some victory to celebrate this, from this conflict. Do you think that Russia could do something even more abhorrent than it has done up until now? Could we see an attack which is very, very shocking and which really pushes NATO to its real limits?
Well, I wouldn't put anything past Mr. Putin. We all do believe that he would like to have something to celebrate on the 9th. This is a fashion of things he's done in the past. And so I think that we will see some pressure. Whether he will use the next level of weaponry, weapons of mass destruction, either chemical, biological, or nuclear, remains to be seen. But we can expect him to push very hard. We need to also remember that every time that we sort of look over what the Ukrainians are prepared to do, we are surprised by how well they perform. And the Ukrainians have been trying to get ready as well. Now, the Ukrainians have far, far less resources to be ready than Russia, and Russia has been moving resources at a great rate to this fight in order to win this next phase. But let's not forget that Ukraine has performed magnificently. They have been well led, they're motivated, and so we shouldn't give up on them in the South.
That is all true, but the Russians, as you say, mass can be might. Just thinking about this next phase in this conflict, which is going to be such a critical juncture and could well decide victory or defeat for President Putin. Are you comfortable with NATO and the West carrying on its strategy, which is providing, heavy weaponry? Or do you think it is time to start having a conversation about revisiting the question about a no-fly zone?
Well, what we want to recognize is that the West, although it got off to a slow start, is now trying to move appropriate equipment and more equipment to the fight. And we need to be very thankful and appreciative for what the nations are doing and how they're doing it. We would ask them to be quicker. We were late with several things that Ukraine needed. And frankly, Mariupol was surrounded before we could get in supplies and gear very much to Mariupol. And that's why we have some soldiers who have apparently surrendered because they flat ran out of food and bullets. And so that's a failure of what we are attempting to do. And we need to be better about it in the future. But I think that we need to focus now on having a plan not to lose Mariupol and having a plan not to lose Odessa. If they lose both, Ukraine, as I said before, is a landlocked nation and their economy is going to be hit extremely hard.
And General, what would that plan look like in your view?
Well, we have done airlifts into enemy territory before. The most famous, of course, is the Berlin airlift. We took supplies into Georgia and told Mr. Putin we were coming into Georgia at the end of the 2008 battle. So there is precedent for delivering directly or more directly to the people who are being attacked. And so again, this is a decision that has to be made in policy first, that we are going to accept the risk that we would have to take to do something like that. But I believe we're accepting more and more risk every day, no matter what we do. And I think we have to have a reasoned and calm discussion of what the risk is and what is most appropriate in our way forward.
So that's really interesting to hear you say that, General. So you're saying maybe now is to start having a discussion, for example, Mariupol critical, Odessa critical. Is this the time to do a sort of agreed strategic airdrop of supplies directly into those particular places in Ukraine to help Ukrainian fighters, but also to send a message to Putin that NATO is absolutely geared up to help Ukraine win?
Well, what I would say is what we're doing now has put Mariupol at great risk. And we need to think about whether we're going to do something different in the future.
Well, we're very grateful for your time this Easter Sunday, General. Thanks very much for speaking with Times Radio.
Happy Easter.